The 2025 NC State football schedule is officially out, and it's time to give our way too early predictions.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Wednesday show is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is nearly here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Download the app or head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started. Happy Wednesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Today is the day we will review and I guess give our preview for the 2025 NC State football schedule. This dropped on Monday evening. We're in the middle of paying attention to the Duke basketball game that we will spend no time talking about today. Hashed all that out for Tuesday's episode. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give our way too early predictions. We're going to go game by game, give a general overview of kind of what the surface temperature is now in January. And then what we always do is we'll do another one of these shows in August where we give our actual predictions after you've been hearing about the summer, hearing about fall camp, and then we'll roll from there on. So Kenton, we're going to get started here with the first four games on the schedule. Of course, number one is ECU.
I mean, obviously, you've got the revenge factor. You were embarrassed on a semi-national stage by ECU last year. And here's the deal. I don't want to hear any more of this as their Super Bowl nonsense. I do not care. I do. If they hate you, you hate them too. If beating you is their Super Bowl, well, congratulations. Get all the family together. Get Kendrick to perform at halftime because, damn it, it's my Super Bowl too now. That's what you do when you're a good team. When teams take it there, you take it further. And I think that NC State will finally understand that after losing to ECU last time. I think that this next one is going to be, I wouldn't say a blowout, but I'd say a little bit of B2A in this one. Because, again, I think that there's going to be I think this offense is going to show firepower like we have not seen in Raleigh in quite some time.
I just hate the way this game feels. And we talked about this going into the Military Bowl. You definitely did not want to lose that one because not only do you give ECU fans 8+ months to talk a bunch of junk online, but now if you go up to them and lose again, this time at home, it's like 3 times as embarrassing as the Military Bowl was. And again, there was no excuse for NC State to lose that game. It wasn't that we were missing players. It wasn't that ECU should have been a lame duck with the new coach. None of that. There was no excuse. NC State got flat out outplayed, and we are still sitting here dealing with the consequences of that. This game is in Carter-Finley. It will be a night game in Carter-Finley. Wolfpack fans certainly understand that. That makes this game just a little bit different than your average game in Raleigh. It is 2 days earlier. It will be on Thursday night. If NC State loses this game, I think I've already said this on here, you will never see a fan base check out quicker than you will see NC State fans completely punt on the 2025 season if they lose this game. That said, I think we will not lose this game. I think it should be, put that in asterisks here, should be a comfortable win. Please, for the love of God, get some get back on the Pirates. I cannot stand ECU. There should be no scenario in which they come into Raleigh and beat us twice in a row. I speak for myself and many, many others. We would lose our collective minds if it goes like that. Second one, we have Virginia. This is a non-conference game, also a home game in Carter-Finley. Talked about this briefly on Monday. Non-conference game. I hate that circumstance in this game. If you're going to play Virginia, just make it a conference game. If you wanted to seek somebody else because you had to cancel the App State game, find like a Maryland. I can't believe I just said that because I hate Maryland, but that's the kind of thing I'm looking at. Just find another P4 school that would be, relatively exciting for the fans to see at home. Virginia making this a non-conference game, it doesn't get anyone excited. I don't even think Virginia fans would be excited. This is yet another game that NC State has to win. Even though it doesn't count for the ACC standings, you can't afford to have your season again begin on a flat note, losing to a UVA team. I think UVA will be marginally improved from what we saw last year. But Tony Elliott, like we talked about on the ACC squad this week, he may be beginning to get backed into a corner a little bit. So maybe you see a UVA team with a lot of urgency, but nonetheless, NC State's got to have this one.
I don't believe in Tony Elliott to any degree. You lost Malachi Nelson, a hell of a receiver on the outside, big body, big physical guy. He gave us hell last time NC State and UVA played. I also think you're losing a really good quarterback in Tony Calandria. Here's the thing. Chandler Morris, good quarterback, not great.
Chandler Morris is at UVA?
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry to butt in. That's a capable quarterback. We'll see what else they have.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think he's a good quarterback, not great. I think he's good. I think that he's capable of doing it at the Power 4 level. This game feels like a toss-up to me. And for the sake of this exercise that we're doing today, I want to say I'll award NC State the toss-up in this one. I think NC State gets this done in this non-conference conference game.
Yeah, I would advise Wolfpack fans to not sleep on Chandler Morris. He's a transfer from North Texas, threw for 3,700 yards with the Mean Green this year. He can certainly sling the rock, and that's the last thing NC State needs is another capable enough quarterback to play for the Cavaliers. I would keep your eye on that one, but for now, it feels like a win. Game number 3, it's another Thursday night game. It's on the road out in Winston-Salem. We got rid of our Demons out in Winston 2 years ago with a 26-6 victory then. This is now. NC State had one of their worst losses of the 2024 season at home. It was the game that Grayson McCall went down to injury. CJ Bailey was inserted back into that game. We kind of fooled around there in the fourth quarter. Let another should-be win walk out, and that was an L for the Wolfpack. Actually, before I preface the next couple games, NC State is the only team in the ACC that has 3 ACC games in the month of September. We talked about this on Monday. NC State has to come right out of the gate on fire, and this is probably the prime example of that on the road at Wake Forest.
Yeah, and I think that they do. First-year head coach in Dickert. Robbie Ashford has been playing college football for forever and a day, but, I mean, objectively speaking, you're going to have a situation where they're showing up and showing out in a very meaningful way very early for Dickert. But here's what I will also say about this game. If NC State loses to ECU to start this season off, this game will also be a loss. This game, I am guaranteeing it is a loss if NC State loses game 1. I don't think they will, though. So I think that NC State finds a way to get it done on this Thursday or on that Thursday night against Wake Forest.
Yeah, my concern is kind of what you already talked about here. It'll be a new energy for Wake Forest. They do take Jake Dickert from Washington State to replace Dave Clawson. What will that bring to Winston-Salem? Will they be able to compete at a little bit of a higher level in the ACC? Of course, that remains to be seen. But you also mentioned Robbie Ashford. Yes, the same Robbie Ashford that played for Auburn, that played for Oregon, and most recently played for South Carolina. Robbie Ashford is a great athlete. He can be a serviceable quarterback. We're going to have to find out if Wake Forest is a good spot for him. But again, I think that's another game to keep your eye on. You got Chandler Morris and then Robbie Ashford back-to-back weeks. 2 quarterbacks that can beat the pack if the defense cannot string together some stops. And the last game of our 4-game stretch here to open the show, on the road at Duke. My, oh my, do we owe Duke some get back? And I was desperately hoping it would have been in 2024. You allowed them to come into Carter Finley, beat us again. That was probably one of the toughest games of CJ Bailey's young career. Now you go back to Durham, where we outnumbered their fan base in 2023. We need to do it in 2025 and then also win the ball game. If NC State is serious about having a turnaround season, this is the type of game you have to win. Duke obviously will have a new quarterback from Tulane. That's Darian Mensah. They're losing some skill players around the quarterback position, so we're going to have to see how they replace those. But surface level, this one really feels like a toss-up. Because we have not been able to beat Duke recently, it pains me to say it, for right now, I have this as a loss.
You know, I'm not mad at that at all, and let me tell you why. When I look at this game, I say to myself, it's really, really been a tough time to beat Duke in general over the past few years. And like I've already talked about, Manny Diaz disguises defense better than anybody. The only problem for Duke is CJ Bailey's seen some of those disguises. He, you know, in the words of Lethal Shooter, he might understand it now. If you catch my drift, he might see things and understand, oh, The blitz pickup needs to go this way. This is how this looks when his teams are bringing it versus when they're not. And so I think that could be an advantageous situation for the Pack. This is another one that, again, based on how those first games go, could go another way. But I think that the Wolfpack can win this one in Durham.
First 4 games of the 2025 season. That's at home against ECU, at home against UVA, on the road back-to-back games at Wake and at Duke. Just want to reiterate here, NC State, this has to be a year where you come out of the gates on fire. You're playing the most ACC games the earliest in the season. Again, you have 3 in the month of September. We'll get to that third one here in just a second. There is literally no time to waste in 2025. If you can't figure it out early, your season may be over before you know it. Hypothetically speaking, of course. Coming up next, we're going to get into games 5 through 8. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our Wednesday sponsor is FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is nearly here. 1 game, 2 teams, and endless possibilities. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff all the way to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place just a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, well, that's just icing on the cake. Download the app or head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started. Bet just $5 and you can win $200 back in bonus bet. That's FanDuel.com in order to join today. Bet with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. Diving right back into the meat and potatoes of the NC State 2025 football schedule, we begin this second segment with game number 5. Game number 5 will be hosting the Hokies of Virginia Tech in Raleigh. This is on September the 27th. This is the third game in ACC play that NC State will have to play all within the month of September. So just to hammer this point home one last time, if NC State does not have their quote-unquote stuff together as soon as the month of September, you could very quickly be in danger. And if you want a shot at turning this thing around in 2025, you probably have to take at least 2 out of 3.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And here's the thing. I think that this is the third out of those 2 out of 3. I think this is the one that they drop because I don't know what it is about NC State, but whenever a player is enigmatic, whenever a player is up and down, hot and cold, yes and no, we always find ways to make those guys into superstars. I have a feeling that we have a repeat of the D'Eriq King game from a few years ago on the way where Kyron Drones cannot miss in this game. He's dropping everything in the bucket, and we're just sitting there pulling our hair out like, well, we knew the defense was going to have some problems, but geez Louise, I think that the Wolfpack dropped this one.
This game also feels like a bit of a toss-up. A lot of what Kenton was just talking about. Kyron Drones is one of the better quarterbacks in the ACC when he's firing on all cylinders. However, my pause for Virginia Tech side of things, I am very much not a believer in Brent Pry. I think this could be a make-or-break year for him in Blacksburg. We actually saw them 2 years ago in Blacksburg. We got the win out there with Brennan Armstrong. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, we're on a 2-game win streak against the Hokies because MJ Morris beat the Hokies in 2022 at home as well. We lost the matchup prior to that. So let's make it 3 in a row. I think Virginia Tech is very much up in the air in terms of what they will have on their roster this year. We know Kyron Drones will play quarterback, and he's very good at doing so, but the rest, I think it's a big question mark. Bishal Tutin's moving on. He was probably the best all-purpose back, or at least one of the best all-purpose backs in the entire conference. How will Virginia Tech look to replace that? They might not even have the answer for that at this point in time. But so for right now, I'm going to give NC State a win. Maybe some home cooking. You can even call me a homer, whatever it is. I got NC State taking this one. Game number 6 is Campbell in Carter Finley. Now, Campbell's actually funny because UNC has played them a good bit over the past decade plus, and I always wondered why NC State never played them because they're in close proximity as well. Well, that question finally does get answered in 2025. We will host the Camels in Carter Finley on October the 4th. Respectfully, this one has to be a free space. Although we kind of said that against Western Carolina this past year, didn't turn out to be as much. But if there was ever a free space on this schedule, it should be on October the 4th.
I mean, I don't know. I think the Wolfpack played as poorly as you could imagine against Western Carolina last year and still came away with a win. You know, before the fourth quarter where it was clear they literally did not have as many guys on the sideline and have different types of scholarship restrictions, it just wore down. physically. We did not play a great game at all in that game and still came out with a win. I think this offense is sharper. I think this offense is a little better. I think this offense explodes, and the Camels just can't take it.
Game number 7 is at Notre Dame. And actually, keep in mind, this is the 7th game in a row. So NC State does not have a bye week until week 8. That's a lot of football to be sandwiched into a 7-week window. And the last game of your 7 is unequivocally the most difficult. Of course, Notre Dame just played in the national championship. A lot of those players are moving on. However, Marcus Freeman will be very much in South Bend, and he's one of the best coaches in college football, at least by my estimation. I don't know who's going to play quarterback for Notre Dame. Maybe they don't even know either, but you certainly understand that Notre Dame is going to be one hell of a football team. They're going to be tough, defensive-minded, nose in the dirt, hand in the dirt. Everything they can put in the dirt, they will put it in the dirt, and it's going to be very, very difficult for NC State to go on the road in South Bend and pick up the win. Northern Illinois did it. Maybe NC State can do it. This one feels like a loss to me, though.
I don't give a damn who the quarterback is. Here's the strategy for this game if you're Notre Dame. Jeremiah Love left. Jeremiah Love right. Jeremiah Love up the middle. I don't think that we have the linebacking core. I think the linebacking core will be improved from last year, which, that's not really saying a ton, but I think they'll be better. I still don't think we have enough to beat a Notre Dame in this moment, especially on the road. Notre Dame takes this one.
If you're still wondering by week 7 what NC State's flaws are, I'd be hard-pressed to believe Notre Dame will find them and more than likely exploit them as well. This is going to be a tough test for C.J. Bailey and the offense. You would hope by October the 11th they have some kind of rhythm and some kind of a semblance of an identity, because that's been lacking in the NC State offense the last couple of years. If you can go on the road and pick up a win at Notre Dame, then you might just be cooking. But I don't know. As we sit 1,000 yards away here in late January, this one feels like a very tall task to ask of a team that has a lot of question marks, mainly on the defensive end, like Kenton was talking about. So yes, not exactly surprised. We both have this one as a loss. Now, after the Notre Dame game, yes, that is the first bye. That is October the 18th. So the 8th game of this stretch is on the road at Pittsburgh. Obviously, NC State is not going to play many more than just one home game in the month of October due to the constraints of the state fair. On the road at Notre Dame, a bye week, and then on the road at Pittsburgh. Now, NC State going on the road at Pittsburgh has treated us nicely. I believe the last 2 times we've been up there. Devin Leary had the late game heroic trip up there prior to that one. I believe it was Nyheim Hines. I think it was 2017. Completely dominated that game. He had a punt return. I think he had another long touchdown. This game in 2025, however, a lot of folks, Kenton included, would say that Pittsburgh had a very nice year in 2024. Eli Holstein's going to be the quarterback for Pitt, at least we presume. Holstein had very quietly a solid year for the Panthers. If he can translate that to more success in 2025, this could wind up being another tough road game for the Pack.
Grayson, I could not disagree more about how their season went. Pittsburgh embarrassed me, and I demand my damn restitution. They started off the season 6-0 to finish down the stretch 0-7, I believe, or 1-6, something crazy like that. Disgusting. Downright disgusting. And here's the thing, right? I think Narduzzi is a fantastic coach. I'm not sure if this Pitt team isn't checked out by this game. I'm not sure. But here's the flip side of it. I'm also not sure if this NC State team isn't checked out by this point, because there's 2 pivotal moments in this season, which we'll get into when we get closer to the season, where I'll feel like I have more definitive answers about certain things, where I can say like, hey, this is what it is or isn't. But I think we have enough to go up to Pitt and win. I got the Pack in this one.
I guess I never really gave my answer. I'm going to go with the loss, but I could very easily be proven wrong on this one. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised at all if NC State is able to go up there and pick up the win. But as of right now, I'll probably flip my answer by August. But sitting here in January, I'll go with the loss for now. I can't wait for them to prove me wrong. Coming up next, we're going to get into the final third of the schedule, games 9 through 12. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Last couple minutes of our Wednesday show, previewing the final 4 games of the 2025 NC State football schedule. Kenton, I actually forgot to ask there in the last portion, so I'll ask you now. What are your thoughts about NC State going 7 straight games in a row without a bye?
I mean, it's tough, but at least you're not finishing out the season that way. At least you're not going 7 straight and having to have the Dirty Foot Club on the back end of that. You know, you get a bye week. towards the end of that situation. And, you get to finish out the season stronger than you would otherwise. So it's tough, but hey, everybody, at least we don't have a schedule like, let's say, a Miami or a Syracuse, because I think those two teams got done the worst way in terms of scheduling this year.
Yeah, although it is a little bit of a grind to play 7 in a row to open the year, I do think that bye week comes at the right time. We basically get that bye week every year because of the state fair, but that always seems to be the perfect spot. Like early to mid-October feels like a good time for some rest. So obviously then coming out of that bye, you go on the road and play Pitt. Game number 9, be at home against the Yellow Jackets. I will not hold y'all. I'm still pissed that we lost that game in Atlanta at the end of the 2024 season, 30-29. It has been on my mind almost every day since. I cannot believe we handed that one away. Haynes King returns for the Yellow Jackets. Jamal Haynes returns for the Yellow Jackets. So that's a 1-2 punch in of itself. I think Georgia Tech is going to be sneaky good this year. I believe if you roll back a calendar year, I said that about them in 2024 as well. But this is a get-back game. You let one slip down in Atlanta. Now they're going to come to Raleigh and get one back from y'all's house. Give me the Pack in this one.
Haynes King. Go get a job, man. Stop messing around with these college kids. You remember Haynes King at Texas A&M?
I sure do.
Hey, go get a job. No, but seriously, I think the Haynes and Haynes combination are a little too much. I don't know why. Even though we lost most of our secondary, I'm more worried about our rushing defense. I don't know why. I have a sneaky suspicion that it might be very bad, and I think Georgia Tech is going to run the ball extremely well next year. You got an offensive line coach. You have a former offensive lineman as your head coach. I see a world where Georgia Tech pulls this one off, and it starts to get a little rocky for NC State down the stretch.
Assuming that we face a fully healthy Haynes King as well, if we didn't find out earlier in the season against like a Duke or maybe a Notre Dame, this will be the game where you truly find out what you have at linebacker for NC State in 2025. The way that they run the RPO, personally, I think Haynes King is a little bit of an RPO merchant, but he's really good at running it. There's a reason that they find so much success running that style of football. Probably a toss-up for a lot of folks as well. The next week after Georgia Tech is actually another bye. So we have 2 byes in 4 weeks. Following the second bye on the road at Miami. Now, Miami picked up, I guess you could say, the premier quarterback transfer in Carson Beck from Georgia. He is coming back from injury, although Alex Dono of Locked on Canes is very much assured that he will come back and make a full recovery. However, I do think Miami lost a lot. They're losing Damian Martinez. They're losing Restrepo. I think their defense is going to have to answer a lot more questions than they were able to in 2024. I'm not exactly sold that Miami's going to be dynamite. However, NC State going on the road down to Hard Rock, there's not much of an environment, but we still haven't been able to go down there and get a win. Sadly, I don't think this one will be any different. I have the NC State drop in this one.
Grayson, you forgot the biggest loss that Miami took in Cam Ward. I mean, that young man was a bona fide superstar last year. Right. Went to New York and all the things. And I think that Carson Beck is a floor raiser. He's not a ceiling raiser. He's more of a thermometer guy than a thermostat guy. Here's the problem, though. The problem for NC State lies in, like I said about the Virginia Tech game, same thing I'll say about this game. We have a way of turning those quarterbacks. We're like, is he good? Is he not good? What's going on here? We have a way of turning those guys into superstars. Carson Beck is going to light it up in this game. The Canes win a shootout against the Pack in this one.
I got to be honest. I've never really been sold on Carson Beck, but I think it will come down. It will come down to what he has around him. Whoever they run out there at running back, their wide receiving weapons. If Miami can play a lick of defense against NC State, who I hope to be an offensive powered team this year, it could wind up being a shootout. I don't know if I'd want to get into a shootout on the road down there in Miami, but I don't know. My gut reaction doesn't feel so great about this one. But if you go on the road and you beat a Carson Beck and Mario Cristobal in Miami, that would be a great feeling as you're coming down the backstretch here of the season. Getting into our last 2 games here, we have Florida State at home. Now, this one will be on a Friday night. Destined to be cold here. The Florida boys got to come up and play in some chilly weather in Carter Finley. Carter Finley's been a house of horrors of late for Florida State. Wolfpack have beaten Florida State 3 of the last 4 trips that Florida State has made to Raleigh. Hope to make it 4 out of 5. Again, a Friday night game. This will be our third non-Saturday game of the entire season. 2 Thursdays here on a Friday. Florida State is probably one of the most intriguing teams in the ACC for 2025. Coming off of a 2-10 season, what the hell is Florida State going to look like in 2025, Kenton?
Trash. They're going to be bad again. They're going to be bad. I don't know. And here's the thing. I love me some Thomas Castellanos. I really think he's a dynamic playmaker. I think he's really good. I really do. A good quarterback, a good team does not make. It doesn't work that way. Thomas Castellanos can't stop anybody on defense. He can't be the guy that builds the culture there. He's not. I am telling you right now, everybody keeps telling me, Ken, this is a revamp roster. It's a revamp roster. They put a lot of money into the roster. Hey, Grayson, quick question. What was the story on Florida State in 2024? Why do people believe they'd be good in 2024?
They put a lot of money into the roster and they went heavy into the portal.
I'm telling you right now, there's a culture rot at that university that is going to manifest itself in a major way this season. And by this point in time, this team will have already packed it in and packed it up. This team will have already put up all the furniture. They would have already said, my crew, let's go. And they'll be checked out. So I don't even know if Norvell will still have his job by this point because he obviously restructured, took a smaller deal with smaller buyout and all that to, kind of leave more money for the university to do other things. I think that this game against Florida State goes just fine for the Pack.
I'm with you. I think there's a very real situation where Norvell will no longer be the head coach of this program at the time that we run into him. We're going to have to see how that pans out. But yeah, I echo Kenton's sentiments here. Castellanos is a good quarterback, but I don't know if he can be like Clark Kent for the Seminoles in 2025 because I do think that is what it would require. I think they lost a lot into the portal. They even had a ton of decommitments from their 2025 class because of what they did this past season. Florida State, I do think, is going to struggle. That's going to come at the expense of being the laughingstock of the ACC for the second consecutive year, but I actually like NC State's chances to defend Carter Finley and pick up their fourth home win in a row over the Seminoles. And last, and also certainly least, you have Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick will be making his first trip to Carter Finley November the 29th. I'm not even going to say what team he was coaching because they don't deserve it right now. 0-4 in the last 4 against the NC State Wolfpack. Kenton, does NC State make it 5 in a row?
Does NC State make it 5 in a row? Does Alex Nunley have more ACC championships than R.J. Davis, Caleb Love, and Armando Bacot combined?
You better believe it.
What do you mean? Yes, they make it 5 in a row. As a matter of fact, I think this game goes so poorly. This is the game that makes Bill Belichick come back for another year. Because I think that if he coached this team well and they did a great job this year, he would be going to the NFL. He won't be because this team, who's your quarterback? You're suffering a good amount of losses on that defensive front. I'm looking at this team and saying, I don't think they'll be very good next year. And I think NC State, like I said, NC State benefits from this schedule more so than anything else. I really do look at this schedule and say, this is not favorable in terms of like, oh, it's favorable because everybody else is going to be bad. I think it's favorable because there are lots of favorable matchups here for NC State. And I think that this is another one of those favorable matchups.
100% agree. And I'm not even trying to be a hater here. I don't think they're going to be good because, again, who is your quarterback? I think it's probably going to be the freshman and Bryce Baker. Who is he going to have around him? Amarion Hampton's gone. Some of their top wide receivers will be gone. I think their defense is going to be another work in progress this year. Kenton told you they're missing a lot of the defensive front. I don't think people are paying attention to what they actually did not go out and get in the transfer portal. Every time they had a commitment, everybody's like, oh, Bill's cooking, Bill's doing this, Bill's doing that. But if you look at who they're picking up, I don't think anyone really moves the needle, respectfully. Actually, disrespectfully. I'm going to leave that in, disrespectfully. I'm not impressed with who they went out and got in the portal. I think you're looking at yet another very average Dirty Foot Club team in 2025. So we're going to be home again, defend Carter Finley, make it 5 in a row. Further assert your dominance over this program right there in front of 56,000 wearing red and white. We love nothing more than that.
Drive for 5, baby. I believe it's going to happen. And, I think that this caps off a resurgent season for Dave Doeren. I don't know why, but it's always the case with Coach Doeren. When nobody believes in the team, when everybody's like, all right, that's it, pack it up, pack it in. Dave Doeren's like, here's another 8 wins for you. Here's 9 wins for you. And I have a sneaky suspicion this is going to be a year of about 8 to 9.
So last couple thoughts here as we wrap this up. I believe I had us at 7-5.
Yeah, I believe I had us at 8-4 or 9-3. I want to say Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Miami, definite. I don't know. I feel like those are going to be lost. Oh, and Notre Dame. So yeah, 8-4 was the record I had. And we definitely reserve the right to change our minds based on what we see in the spring game. Because Grayson and I had a conversation after last year's spring game. Oh boy, the offense is going to have to do a lot. They're going to have to do a lot because Grayson and I both saw the same thing from our linebackers, our starters, and the backups. And I was just like, yeah, if our offense puts up 35 a game, we'll be fine. We'll be fine for sure. Any less than that, it's going to be tough. And we did average less than that, and it was, in fact, tough.
So all told here, Kenton, what's your gut feeling on how the schedule lays out for NC State this season?
Again, I think it lays out pretty well. I think it lays out in a way that, it's not the traditional, slow start, and then you pick it up down the stretch type of year. I think if this team gets off to a slow start, I think the season's cooked, and I think Doran's tenure is cooked. I think it's over at that point. But I don't think that'll be the case, honestly and truly. I think that this team has some games defensively will help them get into a groove and figure it out. I think the offense comes out clicking right away, but we'll see.
Like I talked about on Monday and also earlier in this episode, again, my biggest concern is playing those 3 ACC games in the month of September. If you're not ready to go from the jump, we're going to find out very quickly, and then that will be the detriment to the rest of the season. But all told, I do think the schedule lines up nicely for NC State. I think their bye weeks are pretty fairly placed, although you do have to play 7 games to open the year. But getting 2 bye weeks within 4 weeks there in late October into early November, I think that's the perfect time to set you up to, re-energize, recharge, and then go at it the last couple weeks. A lot of folks may talk about this schedule being backloaded in a sense that you have Pittsburgh, Georgia Tech, Miami, Florida State, and the Dirty Foot Club. You could see 5 decent programs depending on how they shape up through that season, but I think NC State has all the makings to win at least 6 games and make it to a bowl. That'll do it for us here on Wednesday and for our way too early 2025 schedule prediction episode. Feel free to jump in the comments. You can break it down by 4-game blocks or just give us your 2025 record prediction. Anything else you have on your mind, let us know in the comment box as well. Mash that subscribe button, mash that like button. We'll see you all back here for more on Thursday. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.